Hello and welcome to Life Tools. As such, it's going to be a big day of life in Life Tools. Why? Because we have somebody really big on this day here. I'll take you back to 1967. A boy in GMC, he bags 10 awards, he takes a gold medal, 7 silver, and 2 bronze. Everybody is jaw struck. What's happening? Who is this guy? This person goes on to do his MD in GMC, then his DM in PGI Chandigarh, then he serves here in SKIMS for 13 years, then he goes on and he serves in King Faisal Hospital in Saudi Arabia. You must be wondering, and some of you must not be wondering because so much of it is on internet available. That $1 bill story on New York Street, somebody trying to fire him just for a dollar. Then so many episodes, then the ovation in Worli, Mumbai, then what happened in Bangalore, then in PGI Chandigarh, how he got his DM seat there. He went for consecutive interviews on the same day in the morning, 6 to 7, then in the evening, one more interview for gastroenterology, and both the seats came to him. One was cardiology and the other was gastroenterology. And of course, he could not have done both at the same time. Well, it's none other than Dr. Mohammad Sultan Khuroo, a pride moment for all of us in J&K, not in J&K only, in India, all over the world. And it's time we go up and close a little just to find out how it happened with Khuroo Sahab. Dr. Khuroo Sahab became a studious boy that time. What was the formula? So Dr. Khuroo Sahab, just wanted to ask you, you were born in Graveting, Sopore, a small place. I'm sure the things regarding studies must not have been that developed and update. So what was it really? How did you boost yourself, and what was the what was there something in the back of your mind? आप इतने studious रहे.
So first, thank you very much for being here and taking this interview and on my life. I was born in Sopore.
Yeah.
That is the now, not that time, now the heart of the apple town of the nearly Asia. And this Sopore is around 2 kilometers from Buller Lake.
Right.
And it is on the banks of Jalan.
Right.
Now, there is a small place in Sopore town which is called Kraulting. That is the what we call a land of potters. Why it was called Kraulting? Because it's a knoll. It's a small hillock in which there was one family of potters, and our family established here around maybe 2 centuries before. Now, I was born in a time when there was a lot of political, social, and economic turmoil in the valley. And you know, when from the rule changed, the regimes changed, and
Right.
that is the time I was born.
Okay.
So the time was difficult, and I would say in my childhood, half of the time. In early childhood, maybe when what my parents told me, we mostly lived in Buller Lake in a boat.
Okay.
Not that we were actually terrestrial. We had a house, a grand place to live.
Okay.
But because of the difficulties in the social setup there and also in the security setup, so we had to go in between and live isolated in Buller Lake. So that was the difficult time.
Okay.
And I started my schooling in Babai school, which was a Jabri school. You know what's a Jabri school?
I know it, sir, and that's the reason why I'm asking you what was the motivation.
I'll tell you.
What was the motivation?
Yeah,
like?
that's why this was a Jabri school, which Maharaja Hari Singh had started, and people say also was supported by Sheikh Abdullah, that you had to send police to the houses to really get boys and girls to the school.
To the school.
And I was, not that they came to my house, but I went into that school. But remarkable was, I did my up to 7th, 8th class in the school. The teachers were remarkable. And this was the time of Naya Kashmir.
Oh.
You know the story of Naya Kashmir.
I know it,
Why
sir.
was it written, and who wrote it, and what was the concept of Naya Kashmir.
Okay.
And so what the teachers would do, they would propose and propound this program in the villages and in the towns and in the mahalas.
Okay.
And somehow in the school, I became a target of that. That they would take me, so I had to go to the villages, to mahalas, to probably once or twice a month.
To be precise, for a campaign to get
Or
boys and
I'll
girls?
tell you what I would do. We would take the whole, maybe about 20 or 30 boys with a teacher.
Okay.
And then collect the ladies, collect the men on separate.
Okay.
And I would sit in a, kans jante aap?
Ji.
Where you really would
crush the paddy
the grains, yes, the paddy into
paddy
the
grains.
rice. So
Paddy
they
grains.
would turn it around, and I would, because I was short, I would stand.
Okay.
And we had to give lectures to ladies about everything. What are their rights?
Okay.
Number one. How do you clean yourself? What is concept of marriage? What are your rights of?
Sir, what was your class that time? Which class you were in?
This happened in class when it started was
How
class
old were you?
3rd to 7th.
I mean, you were just in third and you
Third
were doing
and
around
this
for
I-
these
and
campaigns.
People would sort of, when I would come back, they would laugh at me.
Right.
What this man is doing and what this boy is doing. I lived at my home also. My brother Ghulam Bibi would really, I would be his target, and he would complain to his mother, look, this man is going
Okay.
and doing all this, and he is taking milk from, because the ladies would bring milk directly from the cow, and I would take it while I was standing.
Okay.
Because they would allow me that, I am giving this lecture.
Okay.
So this is what, first thing was, what happened in the program in schools, and I was actually very active in that.
So that means you were focused and motivated, self-motivated from the beginning.
That's right, as a child.
Oh, as a
So
child.
then when from the Babai school, I went to the high school.
Okay.
Okay. Now the high school, the regime changed.
Okay.
The regime changed.
Okay.
And now
The regime you're talking about, government regime.
government, obviously, the change, because the concept of Naya Kashmir went off, and you went into what's called a Jashn Kashmir.
Okay.
I don't know whether you know about that, because I'm very aware of that, how the regime changed.
Yeah.
When the new regime came, the concept, and this was completely that the society should be very free. A lot of money came to the society. There was lots of new developments happened. Even the medical college, the engineering college came up that time.
Yeah.
In that concept.
Oh, yeah, that was
Earlier, the university had come.
Oh, yeah.
In the earlier, but now, and so many. The polytechnic college came. So there were new developments, and here in the school, as well as in the college, the concept again became not of Naya Kashmir, which was really of a social transformation, came up of a new developmental program. And by that time, I was also developed. I completely changed from a boy into an adolescence.
I would like to know how easy or how stiff the time of admissions were in medical college when you went
I'll tell you. Now then, finally, so I was involved in programs, which may be social. In Chandigarh, Kashmir, there was a very interesting program which would happen. We would really play, we would make plays in the Sopor ground. And there would be, whenever there was any function, religious function, maybe of Muslims or non-Muslims, people would really go into, and we would become a part of that. That's okay. Right. Okay. Now then, in the high school, in the intermediate, that is 12th, I stood first in the district and I was second in the university.
Okay.
Okay. So
I didn't know. University you stood second, and in district you were first.
I was first.
First. Okay.
There was one more candidate in front of me, but in the whole. And this was the university exam. This was, there was
was not a board exam.
No, there was no boards. And
there was no board.
So what happened one day, I didn't know anything. Suddenly, I got a letter to my home.
Okay.
Yeah.
You received a letter.
I received. I never applied. Okay. Nothing. I was just thinking about what I am going to do.
Okay.
And I received a letter that you have to go to Delhi. And you are selected for MBBS in Maulana Azad Medical College.
You had not even applied for that?
No, nobody applied. Okay. What would happen, they would pick up the FSC results from the university. The secretariat would do it. Okay. It was done in the secretariat. Okay. And they would make the list, what is the merit list of the FSC. Okay. And they would select the boys for engineering, there were 3-4 streams. They would, for medical, they would use for medicine. Okay. And so I was selected for, although there was a medical college, second batch was that time there, but I had to go to Delhi. So I registered. I said, no, I've never been to Delhi. I'd never been to Delhi, actually. Okay. I'd been once, and I thought it was very difficult to live there. So I opted for Srinagar, and the secretariat agreed to that. And that's how I joined the medical college, and that was 62. That was
62, and you were
third or fourth batch
there up to 1967.
That's 62. I joined after I made this change from Delhi to Srinagar, and we started 62, 67 was my MBBS.
Right. So, sir, I just want to ask you about your odyssey or the discovery of hepatitis E. How it propelled and how it came in your mind.
There's a small story behind that also. I think every story has a story behind. When I did my MBBS, and you were kind to mention that I passed with some distinctions, and all the time, my father was extraordinary voice for me, and I would always sit down with him and listen to him. Okay. And he would always tell me that if you want to live, you should live with a motto. And as a doctor, the motto is, so he made some very important statements, which I have written also, which are available online. He made that first thing is, you belong to the local people, and your commitment is more to local people than to person outside.
Right.
He said that, yes, you can go for training, you can go for learning, and you can, short time, you can serve there, but always try to come back to your own people. That was number one. Second thing is, always work with what you call as diligence, be very productive, and always look at something which is unknown. There's so much unknown which God has kept in this world. And when you do that, you keep a legacy. So this was in my mind even when I started doing my MD and this thing. But somehow, few years here, it didn't work after my MBBS. Okay. Although I did my MD, but it was quite, it didn't go to that level. So I went to PGI. Okay. And there I found the wealth of information, how to really do. And there's something very important happened. There were ladies coming up there, and they were jaundiced, and they were dying. And nobody knew what was happening. And they had autopsies.
You're talking about PGI Chandigarh?
PGI Chandigarh, okay. Yes. Ladies would come, they would have jaundice, they would die,
And they
we
would
did
die.
autopsies, and this was hepatitis, it was massive necrosis. Nobody knew what was the cause. This was in my mind. And why should ladies only come? So I came back after DM, although Dr. Chitani, a great man, he said, you better stay here and you join us at the faculty. He gave an order also. I said, no, sir, I am supposed to serve back home. He said, you already come back without, he knew all about my career before. He said, you may not do well. So no, I'll go back. So I went back. I came to medical college and joined there. There was a massive epidemic of jaundice in 200 villages around the Ningli Nala.
Okay, you're talking about
This is about
epidemic of Gulmarg,
hepatitis A. This was Ningli Nala.
1978.
It's 78.
Okay.
And this was and finally about 57,000 people came down with jaundice.
Oh,
there were
my
1,600 deaths. That is the final when we really found it out, but it was a massive problem there. So I wanted to go and investigate. Everybody told me that you're crazy and you're mad. Why? You go there, you'll get jaundice, and you might die. And we're not going to join you. And nobody joined. So I went alone, single, and I had few residents. I forced them to come.
It was almost a lonely crusade.
Nearly. And I took 500 healthcare workers, gave them a training, and we did some meticulous studies of epidemiology to find out why this disease comes in pregnant women. And then also did biopsies, did so much work, put up a unit in the medical college. It was really 24/7 and day and night. After 6 months, I did find that this is hepatitis. Pregnant women get more jaundice and they more die. But that was not important for me. I knew that this disease has never been known
Reported.
before.
And it's not known.
It's not known. Forget about pregnant women.
Okay.
The disease is not known. So I put up a paper and I wrote a paper, sent it to American Journal of Medicine, that there's a new disease and a new virus, and this is the pattern of the disease.
Okay.
And we got some help also from outside help to really test these samples for hepatitis A and B. It was negative. And this had never been known before. So once it went, I didn't know. After about 4 weeks, I was in the medical college. There was a clerk. There was one clerk only who would type my articles. Isko naam Ashraf tha. He was the principal's secretary.
Okay.
There was no typewriter.
Okay, there was no type.
No. And I would go and get type from it. There was only one typewriter in the medical college.
Okay.
Usi ke paas, and he was friendly to me, and he would type.
It was which year, sir? Must have been
This
around
is in
1979.
1979.
79.
So when I sent this paper, after 4 weeks it came. The paper came back, written. I know finally, later on I knew who wrote that, with a pencil written, that this is the first evidence that another hepatitis virus exists in the world.
In the world.
And this paper should be published on a fast track. However, the gentleman who has written this paper is not English knowing. So I have corrected his English, asked him to correct it and send it to the paper. Okay. So I had not to do anything.
Okay.
I told Ashraf the correction is already done.
Okay.
So please, is or and off. That was all. He had made some English corrections with pencil.
Minor
So
mistakes.
I did it and I sent it. It got published, and it made a huge bang. That what is this boy saying, and what's going on?
Yeah.
So this was the epidemic, non-A, non-B, which finally, after about 9 years, came up to be hepatitis E. Till that time, it was continued to be called as epidemic non-A, non-B. That there's an epidemic, it is not A, it is not B. So that
Yeah, it was known, it's not neither A nor B.
Nor it was C, because C was that time described as non-A, non-B. But that was transfusion.
That was transfusion.
This was epidemic. This was waterborne.
Okay.
You see, the NIH people had described non-A, non-B, but that was post-transfusion hepatitis, which came to be hepatitis C. But this was epidemic non-A, non-B, which came to be hepatitis E. So that was, and there was a big stories after that about this disease, how did we move, even I continue to look at that now. How was it named? That is story. So many people, about 5, 6 groups of people said this is the virus. Even some from India, from Japan, from France. We never agreed because I would go to NIH and really look at that. And finally, there's a big story how the hepatitis E was, transmitted to a human volunteer from Russia, and then how it was sequenced. It completed the whole process of a new virus. And there are so many other developments in it to the level of how it exists in the communities and in the animals.
And sir, what do you mean by when you say it has vertical transmission? What do you mean by that?
Vertical transmission means that the transmission goes from the mother to the fetus.
Okay, fetus.
Fetus.
Right.
You see, there are very few viruses which are vertically transmitted.
Okay.
And hepatitis E is one of them. And we did that paper on vertical transmission published in Lancet. There's also a story about that. How did we do that? Because transmission basically is waterborne. But then we wanted to know why pregnant women die. And we know why they die now.
Okay.
If you see this article we wrote about 2 years back about why should pregnant women get more disease and why they die. What happens when the pregnant woman gets disease? It's first the genotype 1, which is slightly different virus than what is existing in the rest of the world. And then it gets transmitted to the fetus. Fetus gets severe disease. It produces toxins. Those toxins overload the mother.
Right.
So it is a disease of two people, which kills the mother.
Which
it's the disease of the mother.
It's
the disease of the fetus.
Fetus.
Because
and from fetus it goes to the mother.
Fetus, it doesn't. Fetus, the toxins go to the mother.
Toxin, right.
So when hepatitis E comes in the mother, it is not a disease of one person, it is a disease of two persons, right, because it gets vertically transmitted. Yes. And also it affects the placenta. Mm-hmm. One of my friends in Delhi, he did brilliant work on that. After I did the vertical transmission, he showed that placenta gets infected. Mm-hmm. And placenta produces toxins. Mm-hmm. So basically mother gets three diseases. He gets his own disease, he gets disease of placental toxins, he gets even fetal toxins.
Right.
So if she not die, what will happen to her? Right. She has to die.
Yes. So sir, you just tell me you have worked in SKIMS Kashmir for 13 years. Then you have also worked in King Faisal Hospital in Saudi Arabia. How do you compare the two tenures and what was the difference and what was your contribution rather?
No, in SKIMS, obviously, over 14 years, we continue to complete the story of hepatitis C, although that is yet not complete. Even I wrote this new article in 2021 in Viruses, gave this concept of this that comes in 3 people. Uh-huh. So hepatitis C, first we completed a lot of work in SKIMS. Second is, we described the biliary ascariasis.
Okay.
Third, we did the spear technique, which took the whole world by great surprise that hydrated cysts can be treated.
Okay. This is all in SKIMS.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And then we made a unit, a clinical unit, par excellent. Mm-hmm. That time, SKIMS was #1 gastroenterology unit in India, and it could be compared with anywhere else in the world. We were doing bile duct manometry, which was only available in one place in the world, that is Milwaukee.
Okay.
See, that is the type of advancement we went in. I'm telling you one thing. We're doing manometries of esophagus, stomach, colon, we're doing everything. But bile duct, only one center would do it. That was in Milwaukee. And by the time I left SKIMS,
SKIMS was the only second place in the world.
That's right. And by the time we did 600 bile duct manometries. Okay. And then a third place went, the same Milwaukee person went to Australia and he started doing it there. Because one of their colleagues went there. So this was the level of working. Now if we see SKIMS does not compete even with national level. But by the time I left, and we were the first to buy the US, other than endoscopy and ERs, we started one of the few Although we were not the first to start ERCP, but one or two centers in India had started ERCP. I started ERCPs in SKIMS, but then important was the EUS, which is now really taken whole world by surprise. We were the first to buy EUS in SKIMS, and that is the time I left. That was in '94. The first generation I bought.
Okay, 94.
94,
Okay.
yes. And then obviously now there's a third generation. The SKIMS doesn't have any EUS this time.
This time it doesn't.
No, doesn't have. The medical college has it, a third generation, but they're not using it to the level of third generation. It's a remarkable tool after endoscopy, what gastroenterologists have with them. But by the time I went to King Faisal, obviously that time it was second generation was available, and by the time I left, because I was heading there, we brought a third generation US. So this is one which we did in SKIMS. That was really, but it was innovative. Everything was innovative.
Okay.
We had to really make it ourselves. But by the time I landed in King Faisal, it was a pearl. The type, the quality of work, and the type of work, and the way you walk, and the way you go home and come back, the way you see patients, remarkable. There's no innovation. It is the perfect.
You mean everything is meticulous?
Meticulous American. Everybody is American trained. Everybody. Or Swedish as radiologists. Rest, everybody is American trained.
And if
except me,
Yeah.
who was Indian trained.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, you were there as a consultant and
I was
gastroenterology, I think.
It was very interesting. I went as a consultant there.
Okay.
And went for a few months only. I did 1 year I wanted. I didn't want for 10 years, but because I wanted to start liver transplant unit back here. We went to start liver transplant, and I did start with the American team's liver transplant. We wanted to start here. By the time I came back, they didn't allow me to join, so I had to go back. So I stayed 10 years. But anyhow, that's a story which I don't want to touch. But important was, as soon as I joined, there was a Dr. Kronstadt was the head of the department, head of the unit.
Okay.
After about 3 months, he called me one day to his office. He said, "Dr. Khuroo, sit down." I sat down, have a coffee. He said, "Oh," he was very friendly. And he gave me a letter.
Okay.
The letter was that Dr. Khuroo will head the gastroenterology. I told him, "What you are doing? I've just joined. And you have been here for 10 years. And
He was
heading himself.
He was heading himself.
And he told me, "You head now."
Oh.
And I told him, "It's not possible." He said, "No, I cannot stay with you as a head." I told him, "Why?" He said, "I have seen a paper on hepatology yesterday.
Yeah.
And believe me, I cannot believe that somebody can write it, because this was a discovery of portal biliopathy. I discovered a new disease called portal biliopathy that came in hepatology. It was one of the leading journals. Earlier, people had come in New England Journal. He knew about that.
Okay.
He said, "I have seen this paper, and the type of English and the type of quality of work which you have published here, I will not stay as head of department. You have to stay as head." So he wrote me, he gave me this. I said, "I'm very disturbed what you're doing." But then I had to head. I had it for 7 years department. Normally, people will rotate every 2 years. Then after 7 years, we made a department of liver transplant. And I joined liver transplant. Then I was heading the medical division of what's called medical hepatology. I headed that for last 3 years. Finally, I think people here, Kashmir was calling me every day.
Oh yeah.
So, and when I
you
went
wanted to
when I went to the director that I have to go,
Yeah.
he was shocked. He said, "Please go and think back." The reason was that 400 patients of liver transplant I was following. And
400?
400.
Okay.
And they didn't have another person to follow it.
Okay.
He said, "You are causing a major disaster to us." I said, "I love those patients. I have served those patients. I have served them for 10 years. But there's somebody else calling me." And
So beautiful.
he said that, "Okay, you will not get an exit visa."
So
you'll get a visa.
You will get a visa, but
Visa,
not an
but
exit
not an
visa.
exit visa.
Okay.
So I didn't understand that time. I said, "Sir, why you are telling me?" He said, "You want to come back?
You can come
You
anytime.
can come back anytime. It's available to you." I felt it was, those were people, the quality of people I have seen there, I can never believe it. I'll tell you, I had a surgery one day,
Okay.
and the surgery went for 4 hours.
Okay.
It was transnasal, there's a small adenoma in the pituitary, they removed it. So I got removed. After 4 hours, I woke up myself, I was in the lift. I was in the lift, I woke. And the director of the hospital was carrying the lift. Would you believe it? That it can happen? That the man who is heading the department
Yeah.
is trolling me to the room from the theater. I told him, "Sir, why are you trolling me?" He said, "No, it's my duty."
Okay.
You see, this is the type of respect
Yeah.
I got there.
Very respectful gesture.
Absolutely. And the place was meticulously what you were supposed to do, and completely different than SKIMS. SKIMS was innovation. SKIMS, you had to really create yourself.
Create yourself and do something creative.
Yeah, creative. This was the time but there was brilliant time to work and research and treat patients, and everything was available. So it was you can see the difference now,
Yeah.
from innovation to a perfection.
Sir, I'd like to ask you just one question when we go back to those college days of yours or school days. Do you feel or do you see there's a difference in the change, or there's a change in the system of education, or people are not really conscious or judicious about their duties? What do you think?
I have a slight bit of my own ideas about it, or maybe own thoughts. I think that time, why I made at least something in my career was the quality of teachers.
Okay.
The quality, if I give you some example of quality of teachers which we had there, they had absolute commitment to teaching. I don't think they had any other idea about life except teaching, and build this person into what they wanted.
Means they were very honest.
Not only honest, meticulous, and they were, they were superhuman in that. This was also in medical college, and this was also in the
Your school and college
in
days.
the college. Dr. Abdul Salam Dar. I don't know you have heard about him.
Yeah.
He was our college principal. Latif Saab was our English teacher. He was from OD. And there were several other people I remember who were physics. And then Saifi Saab was the high school. These are people who had made who have a legacy now in Kashmir. And they were the teachers that time. And in Baba's school, there were some teachers, there were some Pandit teachers, remarkable that they had commitment.
Right.
And all along, I grew in teachers, probably in that teaching environment where there was commitment from the teachers, and it directly imbibed at least into me.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but
course.
it did imbibe it to me, because I won't say that, like I told you the Baba story, then I told you medical college story, this high school story, and even I had 1 year in Islamia school, Sopor, meticulous teachers. So I think if something was brought that time, that education was not so hard. I started learning the English alphabets when I was 6th class.
So there was no English
No English.
introduction to English alphabet.
It was only Urdu and Persian. I completed Persian till 8th class, and I knew fluent Persian. I could read and remember it. My 6th class I started ABC.
Right.
Now see the difference here. Now if you see a primary, which is that English, so the education was not as perfect as you would see now.
Now, yeah.
But then
the results are not.
Results were different. Results were different.
Yeah.
Yeah, the results were different because of the teachers.
Doctor, would like to know a bit about. We have heard a lot about Dr. Ali Jan. Did you get a chance to brush your shoulders or have a meeting with him any time that time?
Dr. Ali Jan, I knew when I was a medical student. Then I worked with him for 1 year. I was one of the.
Oh, you have worked with him.
Oh, I worked with him for 1 year, and I was his. I would say, what do you call that? As a resident, I was his most favorite resident.
Okay.
And so when during my medical school days, we would see him, well-dressed person, very silent, speaking very little, just shaking his head and not bothering, as if he didn't know anything else about the world. And when he would come to the class, I have written this story. I'll give you this story about Ali Jan. He would come exactly at time, know the patient's name. Any patient, he would know his name by, even if he would never go, he would just know his name. And we were surprised. How does he know his name?
Yeah.
And then ask him history, examine him, talk to us, and give message very clearly about that patient, and go. So we were very surprised. What this person? So, but he was very well, known in the community. But this is what we knew Jan Saab. Then I worked with him for 1 year, and I was his resident. And I would be in the morning at 8 o'clock. Perfectly, I knew what he wanted. He saw every patient in the morning, and he wanted to see bloods and urines under microscope himself, and see the X-rays himself with on the viewer.
Okay.
And this was my job for first 2 hours, 8 to 10, to prepare for Jan Saab's morning round.
Okay.
And he would come for a round, go from A to Z, talk to every patient, and examine every patient himself.
And it would take a lot of time?
It would take about 3 hours. He would every day he would do that, unless it was the clinic. And in clinic he would see patients himself, and no remarkable. He was just like as if he was a directory. Any patient would come to the clinic. If he had seen him once, he would know his name, and he would call him by his name.
So,
and then he
remarkable memory.
A remarkable memory. And I think that's what made him Ali Jan.
A different
person. There was not much tools, and he didn't have much tools. He had an X-ray, he had a barium meal, and a barium enema, ECG, and chest X-ray. There was no CT, no ultrasound,
no MRIs,
nothing,
and all that.
No labs, simple labs. Some blood counts he would see himself, maximum liver function and kidney functions.
Okay.
There was no serology, there was nothing. So I don't know what we would diagnose that time. Diagnosis would be far deficient than we are now. But then in that crowd, probably he had a character which made him out of the crowd. So I always tell my children also that if you want to be something in the life, be out of crowd. If you are in the crowd, you get lost. If you are out of crowd, well, then that makes you somebody.
So, Doctor,
and he was that. He was out of the crowd.
Right. So, Doctor, I think it would take hours and hours if we go more into your life and unravel the things. But we have some time limitations, and perhaps there will be a next time. Thank you so much for
thank you very much for being here, and you took so much time to stay and listen to me.
Pleasure is mine. Pleasure is mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.